I'm excited to introduce our next two speakers who will be together. Rick Hobbs and Madison Walls. Dr. Rick Hobbs is an innovative clinician. He's both a clinician at UNC Hospitals and a faculty member of the School of Medicine. And while not being a technologist, he understands how technology can make a difference in both of those fields, in medicine and in instruction. And so he is the leader of school medicine's iPad efforts for the MD students. They're getting these 7-inch tablets that can slip into their white coat. And I think that is sort of been the foot in the door towards a lot of changes in technology and medical education. So I think you might have gotten more than you bargained for in that case. And I've been pleased to work with him on this project, which has to do with augmented reality at UNC Children's Hospital, and also with the Emerging Technologies Lab coming out of the School of Journalism. Madison Walls is the project manager for that group and knows how to get things done. Who is a talented leader as well. So I'm happy to finish both guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So Brian did offer me two different things that we could talk about. We could talk about the augmented reality, or he asked if I want to talk about the iPad project. So I'll say, so I've got a number of various titles, one of which is the director of the Technology and Medical Education program. So basically in the School of Medicine, we kind of lumped a number of things together: our ultrasound education initiative, our simulation, and one of the things that I've been working on really is doing a lot with iPads. So over the past 2 years, at the end of August, we'll have rolled out over 1,000 fully loaded iPads across the School of Medicine, so including physician assistants, students, pediatric hematology oncology fellows, third-year medical students, all manner of things. And the fun part is, again, I like to show that it's all kind of in the palm of your hand. And so what they do, and I counted it last night for a different email I had to write, so there's something like 40 specific links on it. There's 80 different applications. They're all organized by discipline. So the nice thing is that we can really teach our students differently, right? So medicine should be practiced a little bit differently because you don't have to have everything memorized in the way that you used to. And so quite frankly, if we can point them to the resources that will hopefully help them engage their patients better and actually use the screen in a way to teach instead of using it as thinking about it, EMR and other technology forms as barriers to providing medical care, wouldn't that be more novel in keeping what's happening in this modern era? So that's the goal of the Technology and Medical Education program. Eventually we will have even more things. Hopefully we'll include our students in some telehealth projects and other things as well. But today, we're going to focus most of our time on augmented reality. So the fun part about this talk is that it actually started in November when Brian got the AR/VR group together on campus, and I said, hey, I'm not really good with tech. I got lots of big ideas. Here's one of the ideas I have. And this was kind of part of this, and I was introduced to Steve King in addition to a number of other folks, and got to know Madison and her group. And so this really came, so what we're going to talk about is our ongoing project. This is, this started very preliminarily, and really this semester in January. So the thought here was, how do we use technology for a purpose, right? So oftentimes, as a pediatrician who is a hospitalist, so my time is spent taking care of sick kids in the hospital, they're stuck there for a long time sometimes. Maybe it's a week. Sometimes if you're on extended antibiotics, it's a couple weeks. If you're getting cancer and chemotherapy, it may be months, right? If you're getting a bone marrow transplant, you're there for a long time. So how do we actually take that extended hospital time, spur them to move a little bit more, and quite frankly, just make the process of hospitalization a little bit less painful? Now, so Amy is one of our wonderful nurses who's here going, I've never heard about this project, and that is because I have kept this very close to the vest at this point, because quite frankly, I want to see it come to fruition, and then we'll drop this wonderful product here. So this may be the first time you're hearing about this, but this is going to happen. The framework for thinking about this is, wow, there's an amazing amount of things that we can do with augmented reality. Gamification, you can hit all the buzzwords that we are throwing around from time to time. And my thought is, what if we use this framework of go, get up, get out of bed, go find something, go collect it. Once you've collected and created, you share, and you can play over and over and over. So that was the kind of thought behind how we were going to frame some of our decision making, and Madison's going to talk to you about how we do it. Medicine is a team sport. Technology is a team sport. I think we heard that from John's talk this morning. This is part of our team, so we have physicians, we have a hospital school teacher who is interacting with the kids on a daily basis. So out of all of this, we're also going to have lots of other offshoot projects to help improve their education, well, because the school doesn't stop just because you're sick, right? So physicians, hospital school teachers, we've incorporated some patients when we went and did some small focus groups. And then we've got a lot of students, and Brian is a librarian, has accompanied us on a lot of this and been instrumental in connecting us. And a lot of students, so journalism students, computer science students, students who are experts in animation and coding and all these things that I am very poor at.
All right. So first I'll introduce myself a little bit and where this is coming from at the school right now. My name is Madison. I am a student, a senior in the undergraduate program. And right now the journalism school is in its pilot year of a program called ET Lab, and it's Emerging Technologies Lab. And we focus on virtual reality, augmented reality, and artificial intelligence, and how we can use those technologies to tell a story. And because it's within the journalism school, so a lot of our projects focus on using these technologies to engage someone better. And so what a better way than, sorry, my name what a better way than to use it at the hospital to engage these kids in a story that they can be a part of. So if you have any questions about the lab, just let me know. It was a long journey to get here, but it started back in November. We went to the hospital, and I'd actually never been to the children's hospital, so that was kind of neat to see it. And we walked around and got to even meet a patient, and we asked them what will get you out of bed? And it was he was like, I don't know. I don't know if a game would get me out of bed. And we were like, all right, this is gonna be a challenge. Because you see the kids walking around, and we asked a girl who was walking around, what games do you like? And there's not really a game that is targeted specifically for a hospital. So why would they get out of bed and play it out of their bed, you know? So we started to think about what kind of game would mobilize a kid and get them out of bed, and we had this scavenger hunt idea. And it started off with, going and finding Ramsey somewhere in the hospital. And then it went to, having a pet that was one of the murals on the wall, and you had to go feed your pet every once in a while. And we had this large brainstorming session where we would come up with ideas and throw them out there and then change them and go way beyond our scope of possibility. But that's what you do, is you think what we can't do right now, but what is still maybe possible. So we narrowed it down, and we came to, right now it's called Super Squad. Could change. Very early stages.
We have a very super squad of people working on this project. So
I do like my team. We're a team of 8 to 10 students, and we have 2 developers, 5 animators, and 2 UX UI people, which is user interface design. So, Super Squad, I'll talk a little bit about where we're at right now and where we're going to end up going with it. It is a, let me see, we won't get there yet. It is a app right now that works on iOS devices that you can log in, create a character, and then you run around the hospital solving clues. And when you solve the clue, you go to that spot of the hospital and you scan a QR code, and then you get that power for your superhero, or that item. So for example, you could collect a cape, or fireball powers, or something like that. And so then at the end of the game, they've created this personalized character that they can eventually, hopefully, use augmented reality to, create a little video of them, flying around their hospital room, that kind of thing. So it's really cool.
So if you take some of the concept is actually, if you've ever been to Disney World, right? So we were stuck on a Disney cruise for 4 days, and you can go, it's wonderful, but you can go and you essentially go from this deck, it's a confined space, just like a children's hospital floor is, and you go and you interact with something on the wall, and it gives you the next clue, and you can, those sorts of things. So this was a hybrid of how do you use the space that you have to get people up and out of bed, how do you make it entertaining, and then the next piece was, this is kind of a choose your own adventure. So you create characters, and again, you get to one endpoint, but there are multiple endpoints. And the goal with the super squad concept is that there's replayability, right? So you can go and you can create all of these different characters, and so eventually you can assemble your squad, you can share it, you can, it can be a leaderboard kind of mentality in the sense that you've created this many, and maybe and eventually we'll incorporate things potentially like step counters, and so we can actually have some quantifiable data for how much we got done and those sorts of things. But for me, part of this was seeing our burn patients on 7 children. One of the things they need to do is help their healing is to get up and ambulate and make sure that they are active. So thinking about that kid, how do you get that kid up and moving from one spot to the other in a 24-room space on 7 children? So that's somewhat of the concept as well.
Right. And so, I mean, I don't know much about health, so I won't get into like those details, but I do know about the design and development part of this, and I can tell you the guys and girls on my team are so excited about creating this app, and it's something that I personally think will have a really cool impact. You're seeing augmented reality everywhere now, but how can we make it specific for children at hospitals? So I was going to talk a little bit about where we're at right now, because it obviously is not a fully developed product yet. And so we're in the creation stages of animating everything and coding a lot of the basic interfaces. So this is the user interface design that we have right now. It's not using any of the avatars we've made, but you essentially log in, you create a new player, and we have some of that data that we would maybe like to collect, like their age and maybe even their gender, and then the larger goal would be able to put in what hospital you're at. So you know this could be at any hospital, and kids at any hospital could play this. So we can see some data there. And then we have it specific for the floor right now, so that way you can't go like from 4 to 5 or something like that. And so then after you've created your account, you would create your character, which is what you can see here. You would get a blank slate. We want it to be, at the journalism school, we think a lot about ethics and storytelling. And I think that's one of our hardest things right now is coming up with how do we give them the choice to make a character look how they want them to look, but also not leave out anything. So that's one of the biggest things we're kind of stuck with right now, I guess, would be maybe a barrier, but we have the ability to change your hair, your suit color, and then your skin color and your gender. So we're working with variations of that, but as you add more variations, the more complicated the game can get. So once we created the avatars, we designed a couple of their powers that they could get. So super strength gloves for all the people who want wand powers, speed, water powers, jetpacks, capes, any and every power you can think of. We're trying to create animations for what that would look like with our avatars. And then once we created all those, we're going to put them into a, so far it's a simulation of you would pick, you want flying or speed, and then you would see the clue for that item. And for example, we have, I'll read it. A portal to the sky exists on this hall, all you have to do is look up. And so what they have on the floors are these big, like skylight almost circles. And so the kid would go find that, and then they'd see the QR code, scan it, and then a little cape animation would happen. And then they would collect that cape. So this is very beginning stages, but so this would be the clue. They'd hit open camera. Here's an example of a QR code, and then this thing comes up that said, you found the cape, and then next clue. So we're getting there. We're on our way to adding more and more code, more and more elements, and we think that it also has a great reusability aspect to it. And we also think that there's a lot of different avenues we can go once we create this, in terms of, Snapchat filter with their characters' powers, like, around them and that kind of thing.
So lots of different things that we're working on. Certainly the parallels between taking kids with broken bodies and trying to help them get superpowers was part of the rationale for this design and this concept as well. But they're doing a great job so far. There's many, many things that we could do with this, and we certainly welcome all the help and inspiration and other things as well. So I think that's it for our formal presentation. We're happy to take questions as well.
Any questions from anyone?
Have you seen anything like this being used elsewhere?
So not in the healthcare space as much. There's actually been some published studies in pediatric literature about using Pokemon Go to increase physical activity. And what they've seen is so there is a spike, and then it lowers back down to the appropriate usual levels, and then kind of evens out. So there's a zeal that happens with Pokemon Go, and then it fades out unless you're Brian. So there has been some data, and hopefully hospitalization is a little bit less. So this is a I would say a more focused way to get ambulation and engagement.
Have the team given any thought to where to go after the student project is done, and whether there really is an opportunity to commercialize this and sell it to other children's hospitals, and are anyone interested in doing that?
So I certainly thought about that. That's some of what we've discussed with the team, particularly with the coding and with the clues, is making it. That's why one of the reasons we shifted from an augmented reality. Here's the mural of a giraffe on the wall. Instead of moving from that, moving to the QR code that's placed next to the giraffe. So that essentially what you can have is a set of QR code stickers that you can share with other children's hospitals around the country, and you've now essentially packaged the deal. So yes. So do I know anything about marketing your business and being an entrepreneur? No. But all right.
And a lot of eventually we would like to create almost like a teacher dashboard where they can go in and change the clues. So that way they're specific for the hospital or floor that they're on. And because right now they're hard coded into the back end of it, but it's pretty easy for if someone who can code to open it up and change what the clue is. But ideally we'd like it to be so that way hospital teachers can go in and have a teacher dashboard, and if they feel like the kid is too old for the clues that are on there right now, then they can kind of bump them up and have them be about, we talked about maybe math questions, dealing with the room numbers and that kind of thing. So
we've had the thought of, once you've created your characters, then another wonderful next step would be take your characters and then use them to play a game. That then generates a leaderboard, those sorts of things. So there are many add-on ideas. Part of my task is not to overwhelm Madison's team. So we'll see what they can do. Remember, they get a semester that's got a spring break and all those other things. So we'll see what their team can do, and then we'll have to take it to that next step. So.
I will say, my students that I'm working with are super excited about this. But we are also normal students as well, doing this for fun on top of everything. So. Feasibility.
Yeah, so I'm not a healthcare provider, but what, when you look at maybe outcomes or looking at how you maybe judge a patient's feeling that day before doing something like this, and then judging afterwards, or even understanding what this might do for either staff engagement or, a number of different kind of outputs could be really remarkable. Just thoughts around that?
We've had some thoughts about how to gauge it. We'll need to think about this a little bit more as we kind of deploy it, and which kind of markers we want to use. Is it the simple press gaming survey, and is it something entirely different that's focused on the patient that we then ask them to do as a survey, or as they, will they authorize to send feedback as a part of using the app? There's lots of different ways that we could do it. Enjoyment of stay, length of stay, probably not going to be a difference. Those sorts of things. Be interested to see step counts.
Yeah, I know that there's evidence that says that more visitors to patients tend to elevate outcomes on some level. So just think you've seen this to family play, right? Getting cousins and other people. I just can imagine that would be really engaging. It's really awesome.
Yeah, that's lots of lofty goals.
Right.
Somebody back there.
So with since you're just now at the point, you probably haven't gotten to all this yet, but I'm wondering what the max age range for this will be, because I'm thinking about teenagers. Some of them might be into this, but not. But I'm wondering if you're thinking about evolving or creating a version of something that could appeal more to them. And where I'm going with that is I have clinicians come to me a lot asking about the transition between pediatrics and adult care.
Yeah.
And it would be, we've toyed over the years with how can we work a game or some kind of role play or something like that into it. And this, of course,
So my specialty is actually both. I'm actually dual board certified in pediatrics and internal medicine, so I'm very much at that intersection. But I've had this thought a lot of times. So our adult bone marrow transplant patients are usually there for 3 months, And they literally have a lap counter, and so the goal is to finish 26.2 miles by the time you're done with your bone marrow transplant process. So I've had lots of thoughts about how to eventually take this concept, the framework that they're building, and kind of move it to another space. But again, that's where company, employees, steady like work, and people with skills that I don't have, that's where that stuff comes into play.
Have you thought about integrating provider requests into this? So like if a physical therapist wants the patient to do X, Y, and Z, to add that as like an aspect of the game?
We have also thought about it not just from physical therapy, but also from the hospital school perspective. So part of this initially started with the mural on 6 Children's, which is literally the painting of all of the state representative animals, so the state bird, the state tree, and the state dog. And that's a means as education to go over there, show the plot hound, and go, hi, I'm a plot hound, and that sort of thing. So there's thoughts of potentially using this kinds of concept to do more than just this one game. But again, we got to make sure it's narrow for them. But then, yes, taking it a little bit further. That's the thing. There's so many potential ideas that one can generate from this. But yes, the goal would be that the physical therapists use it for the burn patients to get them mobilized so they don't form contractures. Yes, absolutely.
And I think we also talked about, the possibility of adding additional things onto the game where you can, Easter eggs almost, where you're not following the direct storyline of scanning QR codes, but if you, by chance move your phone over to this corner and you see something, maybe that's like something from the physical therapist. Think messages from people. We talked about, maybe celebrities, like you found a secret message or something like that.
Yeah,
These are all.
My goal is to get Shalane Flanagan and Roy Williams to do like motivational message that you can find at the end of your rainbow and sort of thing.
Yeah. So there's tons of ideas that you can add into this, which we're really excited about. And you could go on forever about the chances and opportunities that exist with augmented reality. But I think just showing even just a prototype of what this app can do at the base level will really, it creates excitement and people start talking about it, and I think that's one of our main goals is to get people talking and contributing and saying we want to help you.
And then adding more will be certainly the next big step for this project.
Yeah.
And I will say, just in case you're thinking about it, so what do you do for the kids that don't ambulate? So we actually have been thinking about this and potentially having staff members be able to come in and say, which one would you like? Would you like the cape or would you like the jetpack for speed? And then offering them the QR codes in that way, so they're also interacting with staff a little bit from different levels of housekeeping and have some.
So one of the big pediatrics also, the reality of making children with wards in, or kids who do their therapies, or take their medication without whatever.
Hopefully the game will be the reward, but yeah.
Yeah, well, but again, the PowerPoints, we do certain things that the staff member can come to the bedside and interact with them that way. If it's not out of it.
The fun part is just everybody like
Yeah.
you guys are. So as many ridiculous projects that I'm involved in, this is the one that I'm kind of like trying not to get so excited. Trying to set realistic expectations, but yeah, sometimes.
So what's the, how would you formally introduce this? I mean, is it like an order from the
I think this is a standard.
Yeah.
Welcome to 6 Children's. Here's one of the things that's an option for you if you want. Go to the App Store, here, use this hospital delivered iPad or what have you, and you can get up and go, those sorts of things, yeah.
But to your point of like maybe counting steps or otherwise measuring this question of outcomes or whatnot, you can eventually tie it back into actual care plan and even medical record.
Yes. Well, that's so much more code.
Yeah, I get it. You're getting
permissions of cross-platform and stuff.
You might have said this before, but can you talk again about how kids have been involved in design and development and piloting and what their responses have been?
Yeah, so we have from I think sophomore up to seniors right now. Actually, we have a master's student working with us as well on animation, and so we have 2 developers. One developer is working a lot on the, actually creating the code for clues and getting from one clue to the next. The login capabilities, we have to think about that. Like, how are the kids going to be able to log back in and have all their squad there? And then we have another girl working a lot on taking the designs and putting them onto the actual app. So coding a lot of the front end stuff that you see, like the buttons and that kind of thing, character movements. And then we have two animators that are very heavily focused on animating the characters and making it so that way it's easy enough where you can have a base drawing of someone, and then as they collect these items, you're able to kind of layer them in the app, so that way the character behind the scenes looks just like they did when they started, but you've had these like 10 layers added onto them, like the cape, the hat, the glasses. And then, sorry.
I'm sorry, and I was going to say, once we have the prototypes formed, we'll take it back to 6 children and 5, and we'll trial it with we'll say focus groups of patients who are willing to kind of play and those sorts of things. So yeah, they were instrumental in helping us come up with the design the patients were, and then we'll take it back to them to get some more feedback and such as well.
Yeah. And then we have 2 UX and UI designers, which is what I focus on, is the user interface design. And then we have a storyteller. And the storyteller is the one who is coming up with the clues. So they looked at videos of the hospital floors and looked at what items are around, like the fire extinguisher and that kind of thing, and looked to see what they could pair an item with that thing.
The fire extinguisher gets you
Firepower.
firepower.
The water fountain gives you the ability to, swim underwater forever. Like they're things that they're pretty simple for now.
And the cape is suspended in the air.
Yeah. So I mean, they're pretty elementary for now, but we have to start somewhere.
Question?
I was just going to say, for our children's hospital, we have our superhero cake makers.
That's true. I had not even thought about that.
So if we thought about reward system for them too, like they can get their own cake based off of the colors and things that you have on that, and we can join our community people because they come in with their sewing machines and make a whole bunch of stuff periodically. So that would be something we could do for a real tangent.
The other tangential thing we were thinking about was taking their character and with the hospital school, which is ridiculously well funded, is using their 3D printer and actually 3D printing their squad. And so they eventually actually physically collect their squad in the hospital room.
Which is very feasible. We can do that pretty easily with Unity, which is a 3D program. It's just start with this, but that would be really cool.
So at the end of this semester,
action
if people
figures.
want to connect me with all the people who help me do all these other things, please email me. I'm easy to get. Hobbs are at med@unc.edu. Happy to talk more. I have no idea.
You're good. 2 minutes. Any more questions?
All right, thank you for your excitement. I appreciate it.
That was awesome. And
Can I say one other quick thing?
okay.
It is my daughter's birthday today, so I will probably stick through the maybe to lunch and then so if anybody wants to talk to me, come talk to me during break.
All right. And that's a good transition. But being part of this project and a couple other ones is what's inspired me actually to get this Pokemon Go wearable that buzzes and has little flashy lights. And just as a thought to plant in all of your heads, imagine if you had something to wear on your wrist that cost $30 that could vibrate at different patterns and had flashy lights and a button. What could you do? You could communicate in Morse code. You could be reminded of to take your medication. You could say "I love you" to your loved ones. So just keep that in mind. I love this idea. This wearable could be used for any software of any kind. So take that and run with it. The other 2 projects that are like this one that I'm excited about too are, one of them is an augmented reality game that I'm working with some computer science students, a serious game that would be hopefully for kids who are bedbound, that they could control with EEG, which is the headband that Elaine mentioned earlier. So with your brain, you'd be able to control this game where you're wandering around on top of an augmented board game. And another one is there's a computer science, also Stephen King, who's working on sort of an augmented reality zap the bugs in the children's hospital. So you might walk around and you have a headset. And there's a company, Epson Bavaria, which is actually giving them devices that are specially designed so the intraocular region is right for kids of the right age. So it's amazing what's going on at UNC, and it's very inspiring what you've done, so thank you. So now we're heading into about a 10 to 15 minute break. And if you